folks, I'm Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia. What's happening, everybody?
Sam Healey, what's up, y'all?
Welcome to BackTalk, where we take a topic and
It always makes me think of like back talk to me.
All right.
mutilate it. All right. As you may know, if you watch this channel, we occasionally review games. We review, honestly, a lot of games. So we're constantly playing games and reviewing games. Now, we're not going to go off into the tangent of how many times it takes to play a game does it take to review that.
1,345.
0.6.
Yes.
But the fact is that we play a lot of games, and sometimes we love games, sometimes we find them mediocre, and sometimes we hate them. That happens. Whenever we hate on a game, there's always people responding because if people like the game, there's got to be some reason we hated the game, and logically it's not because it just isn't our style, but logically there's something that we have done wrong, right?
Correct.
And I don't even mean that necessarily sarcastically. Sometimes, legitimately, maybe it is something we've done wrong. And whenever we do a negative review, and it only happens in negative reviews,
Right.
people go through how we explained it and are looking for something that we've done wrong. It might be the number of cards in your hand. I might not have said every single thing that the game does, or what have you, and then they say, hey, you need to play it again with the proper rules because then you will like it. And that's what I want to talk about today, is giving games a second chance. There are three different categories here. Sometimes it is where you have played a major rule of the game wrong, or a minor rule, but either one. You've definitely played it wrong. Someone notifies you, you're like, oh, should you play the game again, then give it a second chance. Second category.
Why don't we tackle that category right now? Why don't we just do that in succession, and then he can introduce the second category, and we'll talk about that. Kind of break it up that way.
So I made a major rules mistake in the game.
If you've made the mistake, yes, you should give it a second try.
But how major of a mistake needs the rule to be? Let's say, for example, in this game, you do this, and at the end of the game, whoever has a certain bonus gets an extra 2 points. And I didn't even notice that.
That doesn't qualify him. If it's just a one of the final scoring rules, that doesn't qualify as a major rules mistake at that point.
I would agree with that, I guess, unless throughout the game I would have made different choices to qualify for that bonus at the end.
Right. Yeah, but it also depends on how big the bonus is, whether it was game-changing as far as who won or who got in second place or whatever. See, those kinds of things, usually it's not a big deal because more often than not, we've all had them, people will not listen to the entire rules as they're being explained.
Right.
And then we get to the end of the game and it's like, well, I didn't know that. Well, I would have played completely differently at that point. Well,
I think ultimately knowing how big of a rules mistake you've made is a nebulous thing. Like, how big of a mistake does it have to be? But I think the way to go is to use your judgment. If when you find out that rule, you go, that's a huge, then that's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you go, we should have drawn,
obvious,
if you go, we should have drawn 4 cards there instead of 3 guys. Okay, then it wasn't that big a deal, right? If the way you react to finding out that you made a mistake really makes you feel like, that's a big deal.
Well, one of the things that we did live was when we played Blood Rage live. Mm-hmm. And we drafted 8 cards instead of just drafting 6 and discarding the other 2.
Okay.
That's a rules problem. We messed that up. Mm-hmm. Did it change how the game was played, though?
It just made it longer.
It just made it longer.
It made more options, right?
More options, higher scores. That's all it did. The actual way that you play the game didn't change. It's just that it lasted longer than it should have.
Right.
That's not a big deal to me.
Well, except if that's the particular thing you don't like about the game.
If it goes
so let's
too
say
long.
I did that and I said, I don't like it because it's too long. Well, it wouldn't have been so long.
Sure.
But what I found is most of the time when I'm doing these reviews, and someone says, here's the mistake you made, and I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, man, I shouldn't have made that mistake. But you know what? I can tell already that wouldn't change my opinion about the game. Now, is that because I'm good at knowing games, or is that because I have this bias already against the game? I already didn't like it, and I'm like, well, I don't care what the rule change is.
Could we say then that whether or not the rule is made, the mistake is major or not, is determined by subjectivity then? Would somebody say that something that I think is very small, a big deal?
Is it a big deal to them?
Right. They'll
because
say
they're hoping you'll like it?
They'll think it. No, they'll think that the rules mistake that I made, whatever, was a big thing. But when I look at it, it's not that big of a deal, and it doesn't change my opinion of the game hardly at all.
Well, I'm sure it depends on the person that is making the mistake.
I think there's a pretty high level of subjectivity there.
Oh, it is, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Of course. But again, I think when you realize that you've made the rules mistake, how do you feel about having made that mistake will inform you as to how, quote-unquote, big of a mistake it was.
Right.
And yes, if it's a big issue that you think would possibly change your opinion, then you need to go back and replay that game.
Like whether or not I used the right word when I did certain things or not.
This feels like an in-joke.
It does.
Yeah, I really did not get that.
Of course you didn't. You haven't been getting anything today.
Okay, but so for me, subjectively, how I do things is if I, like Z said, if I look and go, oh man, yeah, then I need to go back and try that again.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say most of the time someone will say, oh, you were supposed to have a hand of 8 instead of 7. You're right, okay, but you know what? That doesn't change how I feel about the game.
Exactly.
And I believe, and I guess there's some arrogance in the sense, but I believe I'm a good enough gamer to be able to tell if it would have changed my enjoyment of the game. I can almost always tell that.
I think
And at the very least,
you can definitely say you're qualified enough, having played so many games, to know if it's going to change your opinion on the game. But is it necessarily going to change somebody else's opinion on the game? Do you have the right to say that?
we never say that.
Well, I'm just saying. He was talking about how it's possibly arrogant, but it's not, because he knows what he likes, and he knows
sure.
whether
Okay,
or
I see
not
what you're saying.
he's going to be whether it's going to affect his opinion. But it might affect somebody else's opinion. So, do you need to go back and give it a second chance if you make a mistake? I think you have to.
You mean a minor mistake?
A mistake. If you make a mistake, you might have to go back and try it again.
But here's the thing. If he makes a minor mistake and the video review is, I hate this game, but someone tells him, oh, when you drew 6 cards, you should have drawn 7 cards instead.
Right.
The follow-up will not be, I'm pretty sure here, I suddenly adore this game top 10.
Correct. Might not make the top 10, but it might not be as bad.
So it might be
I can't think of any game that has ever happened. Now, there are some times where I've done a rule wrong, and I'm like, oh, you're right. I did last year Tricarion, and I made a pretty major rule mistake, and I was like, oh, man. So I went back and did it. I still did not like the game, but the problem was I had harped on that particular rule as something I did not like. Oh, okay. Very rarely do I go, well, I would have liked this game more if they had given me, an extra turn. No.
Right.
So...
Okay, so category 2.
Well, before we get to the category, there's one point B, and I have a whole lot less sympathy, though, when the rules are horribly written. When the rules are horribly written, I'm like, what's going on here? That's
right.
Okay. All right, category 2 is when the rules are written poorly, and they've come back and said, well, actually, we made a mistake here. This is how the game is supposed to be played. Here's the variant. Here's the fact. Here's what you missed. A good example of this, will be very specific, was Besieged.
Yes.
We all played Besieged. We didn't like it. We were like, all right, we must be missing something. Played it again. Did not like it. Okay, we reviewed it. Then the designers were like, we changed the rules. You should play this way, this way, this way. And we're like, oh, those are actually things we had a problem with.
Yeah.
However, those rules did not come in the game. So I personally don't feel like I'm obliged to go back and try that again.
Well, there's 2 sides to this. If you bought that game and then they came out with rules to fix your game, your investment, then by all means, find those rules, play the game that you spend money on. As a reviewer of the game, no. That was what was in the box. That's the game I played. Your game sucked. Put better rules in it next time.
Although we have...
This is not... You don't get to, send me a patch to your game later.
Well, actually, we did just have that happen, too. Remember Arcadia? Arcadia, the amusement park game with the symbols.
Oh,
and
right.
I said it was broken, and they're like, yeah, it was broken. They printed it incorrectly. And they sent us a fix for that. And we tried it again, and I think in that regard, it was just like, I really wanted to like the game, so I played it again. But I also didn't feel obliged to do that either.
But see, the thing is, though, that was a different situation than the other one that you mentioned, because it wasn't a printing error. It was a development error.
Which one?
Besieged.
Yes.
It was a
They
development
basically
error.
put the game out, and then everybody went, this game's broken. And they went, oh, we'll fix it.
Oh, you're right.
We're going to send you the updated rules. No, you changed the game. the game you put out wasn't that good, and now everybody played it, and they're like poo-pooing your game, so you are going to go back and put out new and updated rules.
I guess I wouldn't.
That was the original game.
I guess I wouldn't feel obligated to do it, although I think curiosity would probably get the better of me.
I would play it.
Especially a game like Besieged had great production value. It had great models, great minis, great artwork. It had all of that. Just had a messed up rule book. Had messed up rules. So with that kind of a patch added to it, I wouldn't be opposed to going back and trying that patch and seeing if it is a better game than before.
I would play it.
Turn out that I would not like it again just as much as I didn't like it the first time.
Sure. And again, I'd try it. Why not? If I'm gonna get enjoyment out of it, possibly, but I do not feel obliged to do another review of it.
Okay.
It's like, oh, we're going to send you a box of miniatures. Great. Nice toys. This is not a game. Oh, now we're going to send you rules. Do I have to review this toy? No. I already looked at this thing. And it was what it was.
Yeah.
So that was my review. Now, maybe in 2 years I'll do it again because anybody who buys it now will be buying that one. You know what I mean? But this whole backpedaling thing because we screwed up? No.
All right, third category is the one that we get all the time, and that's from people who say you haven't played the game enough to fully understand it. That once you play it 10 plus times, suddenly things will start clicking and you'll start enjoying it more.
Right.
That's an argument we hear many times about, well, I didn't like this game. Well, you didn't give enough of a chance is basically the thing.
And again, how much of a chance is enough of a chance?
In my opinion, and I feel very strongly on this one, I don't care. If I play a game the first time and I don't like it, that's all the chance that game had with me. And you can say, well, you should play it multiple times. And I do play games multiple times, not always though, because some games are so bad, I don't care. That first chance is all it's ever going to get, because I believe a really well-designed game is obvious once you play it.
Part of that, though, plays into how long the game takes to play. For example, I just got a game in, I won't name the game, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. But it only took 20, 25 minutes to play. Mm-hmm. So we played it 5 or 6 times before I gave the review of it. I gave it more chances than I would say.
Do you like it?
What if that... Not really. It's a 5.
Wow. See, I wouldn't have given it the 5th chance, or maybe even the 4th.
It's a 5. But I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something, because it was one of those things where how the player plays is integral.
Right, and for me, it's sort of something between both of those. For me, yes, 1 play, or 2 or 3, depending on my initial impression. If I play a game 1 time, I loathe that game. I'm not going to play it another time and suddenly think, this ain't so bad. Oh, this is getting better every time. Oh, this is an 8 now.
But would you play But would you play it again so that you could better articulate why you don't like it when you give the review?
No, I got it. 1 time. Okay. The game was abhorrent. I got it. Now, if a game's a 5, then I need to play it again, because I'm not sure. Okay? If it's middle of the road, I need to try it again. I need to solidify. There were things I liked, but this might not have been the exact setting to play this in. I was not feeling this thing, but I see promise there. That's different. I need to play that again. And on the opposite side, if I play a game and I say, this game's amazing, this game is brilliant, once is maybe enough, because I'm sure it's brilliant. I mean, this is blowing my mind. So it's those in the middle that I feel, and this is, again, just my own opinion, that I feel I have to try more than a couple of times to really solidify what I like about it, what I don't like about it. Am I getting over it? Is the bad outweighing the good? All of those things.
I agree with that, with the caveat that sometimes I can recognize that I hated a game because a certain player ruined it for me. Or because we played it with 2 players, I'm like, oh, that's awful. But
sure,
probably
that's a
with 4 or 5, it's much better. The person who made the game was not very clear that, hey, this game's terrible at this number of players. Or so-and-so, oh, wow, I shouldn't play any more party games with that person. It's very easy for a person to ruin a game experience.
That's true.
So you got to take that into account too. I'm like, oh, I love this a lot. Definitely not playing it with Jason again. Just using a random name.
I don't know. I'm hesitant to say that I'm going to pronounce final judgment after just one play. I'm hesitant to say that. I think it's a dangerous proposition.
Oh, I'm not arguing that.
Because you might not like it. And there's nothing I can say against that. However, if you're going to say that other people should not get it, which is part of the review process, I think it's probably important to give it more than just one play, even if it's just another one, just one more chance. If at the end of that, it's just as strong. To be able to
articulate what am I getting from the second play that I did not get from the first?
Maybe there was some kind of situation that didn't arise in the first game that arose in the second game. Maybe it's some other kind of circumstance that, there's no two games, but rarely does the same game play exactly the same every single time you play it. Something will be different in that second turn.
There's some games that are pretty garbagey all the way.
I understand that, and again, I'm not jumping in and saying you need to play a game 10 times. I think that's ludicrous, especially if it's a 2-hour game. You mean I got to put 20 hours? I can do math. Thank you.
You were struggling.
No, I wasn't struggling. I can put 20 hours into a 8-minute review. I can see the validity with that.
8-minute review. Sam, you're a jokester.
Okay, 12 or 13 minutes.
Come on now, baby. You know that puppy's going to be
12
or
13 The question is this then, and we'd like to hear from the comments in you. When does a game deserve a second chance? Getting rules wrong, getting minor rules wrong, playing the game multiple times, or when variants come out. What do you guys think? We'd love to hear it, maybe. I'm a little worried about this one. Putting on armor. Anyhow, that's BackTalk from the Dice Tower. We will see you guys next week. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel.
Zee Garcia. Thanks, everybody.
Sam Healey. See you on the flip side, y'all.